May 8th, 2020, coronavirus-related lawsuits mount. Lawsuits are piling on. Welcome to another edition of Coronavirus and Commercial Real Estate. I'm your host, George Morales. We provide these bi-weekly looks at commercial real estate news and events to be your commercial real estate voice. We want to track commercial real estate for you so that you can focus on your business and respond to the latest news and trends and outcomings that are pouring out due to the coronavirus pandemic and the great economic crisis, the great lockdown. As we record this podcast or video cast, Americans, 33.5 Americans have lost their jobs in 7 weeks. Folks, it is unfathomable. We could not have scripted this. This is beyond the movies to imagine that within 7 weeks, we would wipe out 33.5 million jobs. And as you'll see, we have a full plate of news articles to get to. Some of those jobs just aren't coming back, certainly not in the short term. So it is hard to imagine a more precise dagger to the economy and to the way of American life than what's going on with coronavirus and the government responses. Listen, look to Sweden and other countries did not respond the way we did, and they're just as far or better with this virus than we are. So now we're starting to see, we don't cover politics here, we don't cover the health aspects, so to speak, but there's alternative voices now coming out and saying, perhaps we're not doing things the right way and we could have done things other ways. So feel free to send me a note or drop a comment and I'll be happy to point you to the resources that I'm referring to. But listen, before we jump in, have you subscribed to this channel? Let us know that we're providing good quality content for you. Let us know who you are and who's listening. We've got a good mounting group of listeners and viewers. That's wonderful, but leave us some comments. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe, share us with others, help us spread the word, and help us to be the commercial real estate voice for South Florida. Before we begin, let's tell you quickly about Blue Box Real Estate, our sponsor. We are a South Florida commercial real estate firm. We provide commercial real estate solutions for office landlords and office tenants. We have over 60 years experience, our team members, and we're here for you. Contact us at info@blueboxrv.com. We provide a lot of pro bono work. We're happy to review your lease for free and determine what's the best strategy going forward for your business. Do you have to sublease space? Do you need to have a difficult conversation with your landlord? We're here to help. We're well down the road in that. I've had clients who've had successful conversations with landlords. We're happy to share some of the things that landlords are doing in South Florida to offer rent relief. And unfortunately, we've had clients who have had landlords who just put up a big hand in front of them and say, pay the rent, as our first story that we're going to discuss today points to. So without further ado, let's jump right in and we'll move quickly. First article comes to us from the Daily Business Review. Thank you, Michael Mora. Mora, hey, you're just missing the LES there to become part of the family here. So Michael Mora says, landlords sue Ross stores and other commercial tenants. Okay, here we go. The lawsuits are mounting. This is a landlord suing one of their tenants' businesses. In the past 24 hours, landlords have filed at least 2 lawsuits against major retailers over non-payment of rent. In one case, discount clothing retailer Ross Dress for Less and Ross Stores are defendants in a suit from Palm Springs Miles Associates and Philip Lakesworth, pending in the Miami Division of the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Florida. Palm Springs Miles Associates owns a ton of real estate, retail real estate in Hialeah off West 49th Street. We know them well, where they're suing their tenants, Ross Dress for Less. Let's continue with the article. Palm Springs Miles and Lakeworth brought the lawsuits to enforce the payment of rent on 3 separate locations where Ross has storefronts, according to court pleadings. The plaintiffs are seeking damages in excess of $5.5 million from Ross Dress for Less and Ross Stores. In the court filing, the plaintiffs claimed that the tenants failed to pay rent for May 1st under the terms of their contract. In addition, Palm Springs Mile and Lakeworth asserts that the force majeure provision is not applicable because that provision expressly excludes its application to the making of payments. Now, we discovered this, if you've been a follower of these video casts, we talked about this weeks ago, that force majeure in most cases, number one, is not guaranteed to be in your lease. Number two, if it is in your lease, it almost always carves out payment of rent. So it's in the favor of the landlords. And If a tenant like Ross Dress for Less, I mean, they're a giant. They're the 800-pound gorilla when they come to negotiate with a landlord. If they have payment of rent carved out of their force majeure, folks, most likely when you turn to your lease has it carved out too. And so here we have a lawsuit where a landlord is suing. Look, Ross doesn't pay $5.5 million of rent in May or April, however long they've withheld rent, to Palm Springs. What Palm Springs is doing is they're suing for damages. They're claiming because Ross Dress for Less, or allegedly claiming, so I don't get in trouble, because Ross Dress for Less has not been open and not paying rent, their other businesses are being impacted because there's not the crowd that they're driving in to come into those subways and hair salons and so forth. Well, they're all closed down. I don't see this holding up in court, but it will be interesting to see where the courts line up on the payment of rent. And if Palm Springs can move forward to default Ross and accelerate the rents, which is another provision most likely as a landlord remedy in their lease, it's going to be interesting. Here come the lawsuits, a lot of drama. The next lawsuit comes from a different perspective. This comes between the businesses and the insurance industry. And this is from South Florida Business Journal. Law firm expects surge of insurance lawsuits tied to COVID-19. Podhurst Orsec is leading two class action lawsuits for businesses experiencing financial losses as a result of COVID-19. It's the first wave of business insurance lawsuits the Miami-based law firm expects to file in the wake of global pandemic. They're coming. If they're already out there, it's nationwide. This is impacting our South Florida community. Now, the plaintiffs are local tenants. Atma Beauty, a Miami Beach salon and spa, is serving as a lead plaintiff in class action suit against insurers HDI Global Specialty, SE, Access Specialty Europe, SE, and the underwriters at Lloyds of London. Lloyds of London, it comes around, goes around. I mean, I don't know about you, but we had them personally as our home insurance, and they pulled the plug on us and didn't renew. They pulled out of Florida. So here come the lawsuits, Lloyds. The complaint filed in the U.S. District Court of the Southern District of Florida alleges Lloyds of London is in breach of contract because it refuses to cover losses and expenses incurred by the salon after it was ordered to close in compliance with state and local guidelines tied to COVID-19. Again, if it's a strict business interruption insurance, that's tied to your property casualty insurance as a rider, which means if there wasn't any property damage, it doesn't trigger pandemic or government closures do not trigger business interruption insurance. But Stephen Marks, continuing the article, an attorney with Podhurst Orsec representing Atma Beauty, said the company paid a higher premium to purchase an all-risk insurance policy. Those policies provide coverage for any business losses unless they are specifically excluded, said Marks. Now there's the fight. There's the exact fight. From the tenant's perspective, they're going to argue, unless it's excluded, it's included. From Lloyds of London's perspective, they're going to argue, unless it's included, it's excluded. And it's going to be really interesting to see where the courts line up on this. I hate to do this, but this is courtroom drama that needs to happen so that there's some statutes formed and there's some guidance going forward. So here we have lawsuits from the business community to the insurance agencies. And isn't that, unfortunately, sometimes how the insurance agency industry works? You have a claim and then you start finding out, well, that's excluded, this is excluded, this is excluded. That's one reason why I typically don't buy warranties for autos. The one time I did, it's fooled me once, shame on you. But whenever I had a claim, it wasn't included. So that's interesting. There are a third round of lawsuits. I don't have the article pulled up, I apologize, that are happening between business communities and local municipalities, the governing authorities. Why? Because this is the first time in U.S. history. We've had other pandemics before. It's been a long time. 1918 has been over 102 years. But the government in this case is determined carte blanche at their sole discretion what is an essential business and what is a non-essential business. So if you're a salon and part of your business is selling hair products and brushes and so forth, you're closed. You're closed. You're not an essential business. However, Walmart sells the same products, is deemed an essential business. How are the courts going to line up on that? What gives the government the right to say your business is essential and yours isn't? There was recently in the news in Dallas, a salon was shut down and the principal was arrested for opening, and she was thrown in jail for 7 days. 7 days. And the judge, I believe, or the police offered her an opportunity, if she apologized for being selfish, to do away with the jail time and the fines. She was also fined, I believe, $1,000, allegedly. Okay, let's not get in trouble. She refused, and she says, if you consider the necessity of feeding my children and the necessity of my stylists feeding their children, if you're saying that's not a necessary business, well, I am not selfish and I'm not apologizing. And she went to jail. Good for her. She stood up for her principles. But here come the lawsuits. What gives the government the right to deem your business non-essential and yet other businesses essential? It's okay for hundreds of people to come in and out of Walmart on an hourly basis, but it's not okay for 100 people to gather practicing social distance at a church, for instance, or a religious organization. So I think the government, it's, there's a fine line there, and it's going to be interesting to see how those lawsuits pan out. So we have lawsuits between landlords and tenants. We have lawsuits between tenants and their insurance agents. We have lawsuits between businesses and their governing authorities. We have lawsuits everywhere, and I hope we don't have one here for reporting it. But that's what's happening. The lawsuits are mounting thanks to coronavirus, and the government responds with the great lockdown. The next question that really arises is what happens when we start to reopen the economy. May 1st or May 4th, I believe, on Star Wars Day, Florida started opening. There's some beaches that are opening, and there's some limited businesses opening. For instance, restaurants, in some cases, not South Florida yet, can open as long as they seat people outside, practice social distancing, and only operate 25% capacity. Well, I gotta tell you, if I was running a restaurant, I'd say no thanks. How in the world can I figure out how to run my business thanks to some government bureaucrat who's telling me what I can do or not do? I don't think that's sustainable, but that's exactly what the next article talks about. And this comes to us from Philadelphia Business Journal. Look, we go everywhere for news for you. Philadelphia Business Journal. What will reopening look like for local businesses? Economic development officials say it could be costly. Now, again, let me beat this drum. Walmart and Target and Home Depot and Lowe's and Publix, the giant corporations, have not had to deal with this. They have been running and opening and making money. It's the small local businesses that are taking the hardest coronavirus hit. That's just the facts. Greater Philadelphia's economic development agencies are gearing up for a slow reopening of businesses across the region. And leaders of those organizations say companies need to be prepared to spend some extra cash in a post-pandemic economy. I mean, folks, extra cash. What extra cash is there? They've had to lay off most of their employees. They've applied for the PPP program, but it's been Harvard University and the Los Angeles Lakers and Shake Shack and Ruth Chris of the world who've received that money first, not the small businesses. And now they're saying, oh, you got to be prepared to spend extra cash to open effectively. Let's continue with the article. Social distancing guidelines and cleaning practices can impact revenue and profit margins. Businesses will need to undergo deep and daily cleanings, which can be expensive. Companies must ask what their post-pandemic business will look like from a financial perspective and what sort of capital will be needed to reopen despite revenue not matching expenses, she said. Again, this is all bubble world. This is governmental world, not business world. Local businesses will also need to look at ways to source personal protective equipment when they are allowed back in the shop or the office, says Mike Grigolonis, Chief Operating Officer at Chester County Economic Development Council. There you go. Council people, government folks who aren't in the real world. They're just waving the wand. Hey, you got to provide PPP equipment. And for who? Who are you going to provide it for? You've lost most of your workforce. And now what? You're going to face lawsuits again? And in fact, I didn't cover that, but I'm sure there are lawsuits from employees to their employers, like at Amazon, over coronavirus. You've got lawsuits everywhere. So again, very difficult time for the small business community. You've been furloughed, you've been deemed non-essential. While big companies, corporations, big Walmarts of the world that provide the same commodities that you do have been allowed to stay open. And now when you reopen, they're saying, okay, you can reopen, but under these certain parameters, you can only have this, you can only do that, you must provide this, you must provide that. It's really a perfect storm for the loss of jobs and the loss of our small business communities. We are not going to see a return to normal not just in the nation, especially places like South Florida, we're so driven by small businesses. A majority, over 56% of our businesses, according to a recent study, comes from small business. It's the economic driver, entrepreneurs, risk-taking, investing your own capital. Well, we're not going to see a return to normal or a recovery, a full recovery, until the confidence is restored in the small business community that when they invest their life savings or when they get that home equity line of credit and open a new business or expand their business, until they have the confidence that the local governing officials aren't going to close them down in a second wave or future wave or the next flu season, we're not going to see a return to normal. I mean, how can you expect a restaurant to reopen after they've just been shut down for 7 or 8 weeks and then they're being told how to reopen? Folks, we have to get to some form of normalcy and some form of just American free markets capitalism and allow American people to judge their own health and to judge how to open and when to reopen. And you know what's going to happen in the free markets? The customers are going to determine, I'm not sure, I'm not going to go to that place or this place because they're not practicing this or that. But let it be determined in the free markets. What's happening now is put a whole strain on the small businesses. And again, the confidence level. When will small business reinvest or invest for the first time their own capital, their own savings to move forward? That's a huge question. And until that question is answered, we're really not going to move forward. Well, the next article, sorry for that rant. The next few articles talk about the impact of commercial real estate with the job losses and change of behavioral use of the office space. This comes from Insurance Journal. Nationwide, okay? Nationwide is on your side if you're wanting to work from home. Nationwide left the building is the title of the article. This, again, from Insurance Journal. Insurer makes remote work permanent in 5 states. Nationwide said its plans to permanently transition to a hybrid operating model that comprises primarily of working from home office in 4 main corporate campuses and working from home in most other locations. The company said it will exit most buildings outside of 4 main campuses by November 1, 2020, and move associates in these locations to permanent remote working locations. Right? Landlords, buyer beware. There you go. Nationwide's letting you know they're closing down their offices. So they are another firm, we talked about Uber before, who've said, we are now going to implement this work from home strategy long term. And folks in commercial real estate like myself, I mean, that's all not great news. We will rebound. We will figure out new uses for commercial real estate, but it certainly seems like CoStar's report that we covered 2 weeks ago, anywhere from a 5 to 11% diminished demand for office space coming out of this, just from these work from home strategies like Nationwide in the corporate world. WeWork is always in the news, and they've pulled the plug, according to CoStar. They've scrapped plans to open a location with the Colorado Rockies in a mixed-use project. So this is a 210,000 square foot lease that was being negotiated and discussed with the Rockies in a 665,000 square foot development that they were doing alongside their stadium. The development included 112 residential units, 176 hotel, restaurant, retail, office space, and so forth. But WeWork was going to anchor that. Now, Colorado Rockies lost their anchor tenant, WeWork, pulling the plugs on their leasing activity. Now, speaking of leasing activity, we've transitioned into another article from CoStar. Thank you, CoStar. And that is that pandemic continues Florida's decline of monthly commercial real estate transactions. Okay, no surprise. Again, we are not seeing a lot of new transactions. Even renewals are being delayed and turned into month to month. Even renewals out a year ahead of time, we're being notified they don't plan to keep that space or need to downsize that space. And certainly expansions have gone. So very little activity in terms of new demand and expansions. But CoStar points out the Sunshine State's largest markets all witnessed sharp falling April activity, especially when you compare it to last year. This comes from Brian Alford and Aaron Amon-Surlis. The total number of monthly commercial real estate transactions across Florida in 2020 has thus far peaked in January. Well, we peaked early, with nearly 1,500. Each subsequent month since has witnessed a steady decline, including a particularly hard fall in April, when less than 40% of March's already reduced activity occurred. So again, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Take a look at that chart. January, March, I skipped a month. January, February, March, April. Furthermore, April was the strongest month among this time period in 2019. A sharp difference, a marked difference compared to April of this year. So look at this graph right here. Florida's largest market experienced sharp April decline. Look at that. Look at Tampa. Look at Miami. Miami is the second one there. All across the board, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, we've got Palm Beach. This is the monthly average from January and March, and then April. So January and March, really February and March were well off, but even compared, I mean, we're far off from where we were last year, but even compared to that, there's been a sharp decline. Listen, the business community is in shock, and this feels a lot. I've told many folks, like 9/11 and the Great Recession combined in once, but you compressed it all within 7 weeks, and we still don't know what the outcome looks like. So a very grim picture for leasing activity. And that's where we're going to end the next two articles. We're going to discuss, on the positive side, the deals that actually closed in the first quarter. Now, keep in mind, and there's some massive deals here, praise God. And I think the brokers need a big round of applause, because of these deals. However, most of these deals were well down the pipeline before coronavirus, but even getting them across the finish line, we've seen many like Blackstone and Alexandria forego millions of dollars in deposits in order to not move forward. So these did not. These moved forward. Top leases for South Florida. The tease is over. Here we go. The top lease in South Florida first quarter, 200 South Biscayne Boulevard, Southeast Financial Center. Space leased 111,100 square feet to Morgan Stanley. Now, this is our largest building, office building. It's really the building that has predominated the top of the market for years is this building, Southeast Financial. But Cameron, Talon, Eric Groffman of JLL, congratulations, great job. Signing 111,100 square foot lease on March 2nd, 2020. Again, note the date, just before coronavirus, which means Morgan Stanley, you win the prize of signing at the top of the market for South Florida. Was early March 2020. So you probably signed, I don't know, the terms aren't disclosed, but 5 or 10 years at the top of the market and one of the best office buildings. They took over 4 floors at Southeast Financial Center in downtown Miami. Congratulations, Morgan Stanley. We don't have the brokers who represented Morgan here listed. Okay, top lease West Palm Beach came the property 360 Rosemary Avenue, and it's 25,790 square feet. And this is a new lease to Spaces. Spaces signed March 8th, 2020. John Blunk of Tower Commercial Real Estate represented the landlord. So again, congratulations to Spaces. You have just won another prize in Palm Beach of signing, probably Spaces signs 10 or 12 year leases when you look at the free rent and build out that they receive at the top of the market just before the fallout of coronavirus. Again, I point that out because we're already my prediction is by the end of summer, we're going to start seeing the effects on rental rates and demand and occupancy. And we're going to look back and see the sharp decline. And I'm hopeful on the positive side, it won't be more than 10%. Where it goes beyond that is anyone's guess, but I'm hopeful there'll be a 10% correction for office space. But Spaces, you got there at the top of the market. Congratulations. Top lease, Pembroke Pines. Beautiful building. I had a chance to tour this building, 1200 Southwest 145th Avenue, the Edison. Beautiful building. 45,466 square feet, signed by Galen Health. The building's on March 3rd, 2020. So again, congratulations for signing at the top of the market before coronavirus, Galen Health. Greg Martin, Justin Cope, Lisa Blummer of Avison Young represented the landlord. So congratulations. The Edison building is a new facility completed in 2019, state of the art. It really is. If you haven't had a chance to drive by, take a look. State of the art. Obviously in South Florida, these new buildings are built with impact resistant windows and some type of generator system. But they also built out a separate building for tenant amenities and tenant suites. It's impressive. Top lease, again, for South Florida, signed in the first quarter. This one's at Wells Fargo Center, 333 Southeast 2nd Avenue. And this goes, it's 24,476 square feet to Hunton, Andrews, and Kurth. Signed February 1st, 2020. The brokers involved, It's Cushman and Wakefield on the landlord side. Wells Fargo Center welcomes Hunton Andrews Kurth, a company that specializes in corporate litigation and labor practices in South Florida and Latin America, decided to expand into South Florida market to better serve the Latino demographic. Well, I bet they're busy now. Top lease, again, West Palm Beach. This will be the last one we cover. 1700 Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard. 1700, the space lease, 32,503 square feet by the U.S. Internal Revenue Service. Let me repeat that again. The IRS leased 32,503 square feet, February 5th, 2020 at 1700 Palm Beach Lakes. The brokers involved were Cushman and Wakefield, representing the landlord. The IRS is expanding within the 1700 Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard building. The government agency has been in the building since 2005, so go figure, the IRS is expanding. And they signed their lease here in February 2020. So there is your list of top leases in South Florida. Lastly, we're going to cover top sales recognized for South Florida, and there's a host of them, too many of them. We'll try to bring in 2 or 3, many in the multifamily, as you can imagine. And here are the top sales. The top sale is not disclosed because it's Prologis' $13 billion portfolio sale of Liberty Property Trust, and a significant portion of that was in South Florida. This sale is 1400 North Point Parkway, West Palm Beach, Florida, on February 4th, 2020. By Prologis. The size of this portfolio, 8,085,893 square feet. Seller was Liberty Property Trust. Of the 604 properties included in this international sale, this is a $13 billion sale, 42 of those properties, totaling 8.1 million square feet, are located in South Florida, 7% of the property transferred. So that is the largest sale. 7950 Northeast Bayshore Court, Miami, is one of the largest sales, if not the largest sale in Miami. Closed January 10th of 2020. 7950 Northeast Bayshore Court sold for $132,100,000. It was 768,586 square feet. The buyer was CBRE Global Investors out of Los Angeles. The seller was ECI Group out of Atlanta. CBRE Global Investors plans to reposition this project, which consists of both 20-story and a 21-story tower. Okay, the development also includes 4,200 square feet of retail. It looks to me like it is a multifamily deal, according to the article. 1801 Collins Avenue. The next few are in Miami Beach, and these are hotels. This was a $120 million deal. 185,832 square foot hotel, closed February 3rd, 2020. Cedar Capital Partners of London, LND, King Street Capital Management, New York, and Westdale Properties out of Toronto were the buyers. Whew, that's a lot of getting together and putting everything together. And Crescent Heights, Miami, was the seller. They plan to reposition the iconic Miami Beach Hotel, I believe, as part of the purchase. Another top sale, 100 21st Street, Miami Beach. And this comes to us. The buyer was Blue Horizons Advisors of London, LND. So this is their second purchase in Miami Beach. $120 million for the 116,335 square foot hotel. The seller was Actium New York NY and Lionheart Capital. Gregory Rumpel of JLL Hotels represented the seller. The seller flipped this property for nearly 4 times what they paid at auction just 2 years ago. So when folks are saying, I want to buy deals and look for deals, this is what they're talking about. The buyer plans to redevelop the property into a luxury hotel. Okay, the others, and we'll just quickly, 400 Northeast 1st Avenue in Fort Lauderdale, that's a multifamily deal. $112,500,000, January 29th, 2020 it closed. TA Boston, TA Realty was the buyer. Morgan was the seller out of Houston. And we'll cover one more sale, and that is 1170 Northwest 11th Street. Price not disclosed. Wonderful. March 13th, 2020. The buyer of this multifamily was Mezzero Financial. Seller was Mill Creek Residential. Okay, the property reports not occupancy at the time of sale. So there you have it. There's many more leases that were part of these reports. There's many more sales. Again, we're very happy to provide these to you. Any of these articles that we reference, we can send you directly the article, but the easiest way to track these is to go to linkedin.com, look up Blue Box Real Estate, and click the follow button, and we push all these through on a daily basis. Anytime we see national news, commercial real estate news, we're pushing it through our LinkedIn corporate page, Facebook, the host of Instagrams, host of ways you can find us, our website as well, blueboxre.com. And if there's anything that we talked that sparked an interest, you have a question or comment, please put a comment below and we'll do our best to answer it. Either you can do that at LinkedIn, you can do that right here on YouTube. So that wraps up our look at commercial real estate for this week, May 8th. And before we end, we want to turn back to reading from Genesis chapter 1. We began to read through, I think for the next few of these, we'll continue reading chronologically through Genesis chapter 1, which answers who is God, who is man, and what is God doing in this world. Really everything, where sin came from, where evil came from, what's wrong with this world, what's going on, why is there things like coronavirus and so forth. God's word answers, especially the first 11 chapters of Genesis. We really have a great history of the earth. So we started the first day, God said, let there be light. And chapter 1, verse 6, we continue. And God said, let there be an expanse in the midst of the water. So this is now day 2 of creation. And let it separate the waters from the waters. And God made the expanse and separated the waters that were under the expanse from the waters that were above the expanse, and it was so. And God called the expanse heaven. And there was evening and there was morning the second day. And God said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together in one place, and let dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the waters that were gathered together he called seas. And God saw that it was good. And God said, let the earth sprout vegetation, plants yielding seeds and fruit, trees bearing fruit, in which is their seed, each according to its kind on the earth. And it was so. And the earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seeds according to their own kind, and trees bearing fruit, in which there is their seed, each according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning the third day. We'll stop at the third day and we'll go back into the fourth day. But very interesting. You say, before God creates the sun, he created vegetation. The sun's coming on the fourth day with the stars and the moon. And there's some people who like to read millions and billions of years into the creation account, but you can't have millions of years and vegetables and seeds and plants and trees growing without the sun. So in a 24-hour cycle, yeah, you can. You can create this and the next day bring the sun. But very interesting. My son and I have picked up gardening as one of our hobbies. Let us know what your hobbies are during these stay-at-home work days. And we planted broccoli and lettuce and carrots, and I can't tell you everything. We squash, tomatoes, we've got a lot of stuff coming. But it's amazing. I can take that little broccoli seed and I can put it in the ground, and I can rest assured, I can go to sleep, I can bet my financial future in my whole house, my whole life, on the fact that when I plant that broccoli seed, when it germinates and sprouts, out comes a broccoli plant. I'm not going to expect a mango. I'm not going to get a strawberry. It's going to be a broccoli seed. Why? That's how God created it way back when, on the third day of creation. He created trees and seeds according to its kind, and therefore we can farm, and therefore we can sustain life and feed ourselves because of what God has done way back at the beginning of creation. So hope you find that interesting. I hope you find these commercial real estate coronavirus webcasts worthwhile. Again, let us know. If you have any questions regarding commercial real estate, send us a note, info@blueboxre.com. But for the May 8th, 2020 edition, I want to thank you for tuning in. Again, I'm your host, George Morales of Blue Box Real Estate. Until we talk again next week, God willing, stay strong, stay safe, trust in the Lord, and together we'll get through this. Good day.